I actually really do miss getting together with Marquise and Krista every other Saturday. But I have yet to get my little Zoom confirmation thing, so hopefully I'll get that set up. But in the meantime, like I said, it's been a while. Kind of wanted to touch base a little bit on current affairs and current situations. Specifically when it comes to the pandemic. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube because I guess, much like other social media, they're trying to crack down on misinformation. I'm not here to give misinformation. I'm here to give an opinion on certain things, such as things I'm observing, things that I'm seeing. And just a little backstory. I am one of those essential workers. When the pandemic started, me and my fiance both had to go out every day and deal with, basically going to work. But going into work in a different scenario where basically we get to go out and put our lives at risk for other people so they could stay home. And I'm turning all this down so you can hear me. Okay, let's see. What does that say? Done? Okay, so I hit that. And yes, this is my avatar. I get a field day out of it. Mostly because I rather enjoy it when people leave me alone. I just come in here to play. Now, this game in particular is called Four Kings Casino. I figured this was the aptly appropriate thing to do or play while I'm talking about things such as gambling with our lives. And I know I went off topic there, you get the idea. I don't edit these things, this is all from the cuff. And if you hear any noise in the background, got the AC going because it is going to be in the upper 80s today, so I'm fat, I don't want to roast. Now, getting back to it, I'm an essential worker. Me and my fiance have been out since the beginning. Masks everywhere we gotta go. Whole shebang. We live in Michigan. And Michigan had been the hotbed of issues. Specifically with people who got tired of sitting on the couch. They want stores to reopen. They want this to happen. They want that to happen. But in doing so, these morons went to the Capitol in Lansing with guns, went in the Capitol with guns, demanding that the governor open shit back up because they're tired of being oppressed. They're tired of having their freedom stampeded over. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I disagreed, again, excuse me, with some of the things that the governor did. There was a barber, I believe I touched on this on a previous broadcast, where he just wanted to do his job. He wanted to make a living. He was wearing a mask, he wore gloves, and he got fined, but he kept going, and ultimately he lost his license. I thought that was unfair. I really did. But the fuckers who go to the Capitol with guns and don't get arrested? Meanwhile, you go in California and they do a protest where they said it was, don't protest at the Capitol. People showed up, excuse me again, without guns. They get arrested. But these, and I'm going to call it as it is, these fat fucking white overprivileged dipshits go to Capitol in Lansing with their fucking firearms and demand that the governor lighten up the restrictions. Now, currently, in Michigan, they reopened the Upper Peninsula a bit. Some counties are using it as their discretion to only, service people in their own communities. So if you come out from outside of the community, they're going to say, sorry, we're going to check your ID. If you're not a resident here, for our safety, we're not going to serve you. By the way, I want you to remember that line in a few moments. I'm going to hope to God I remember the line. So, but here where I live in the lower peninsula, there's still a lot of restrictions. The stay-at-home executive order is still in effect. The governor's being sued because the Republicans say she can't do the executive order. But hey, they have no fucking trouble with Donald pulling executive orders out of his fucking ass, and they will gladly hit the undercarriage of his diseased, sweat-soaked taint to do, bend over backwards to allow him to do it. But because the governor in Michigan decided to do it, in California and all that, they're like, no, that's unconstitutional. They're picking and choosing what the fuck that they want to do. So, that being said, we're going to move on. I don't know why I'm doing this, but mostly so I can focus and concentrate and let this do its thing. So, they still protest. You got some people that are cutting hair for protesters for free of charge, giving their support. But the one that gets me, actually there's a couple, but the one that kind of gets to my core is a strong man named Robert Oberst. I really like Robert. I do. He comes from if I'm saying things out of turn, you can go to his own page. You can go to Strongest Man in History, where he talks about his growing up. So I'm not saying anything that this man has not said himself. He came from a hippie-ish-like family, grew up poor. They only had lights, I think, on weekends or whatever. Very, very humble, very, down-to-earth guy. But he is also... Oh, got the microphone too close to my mouth. I do apologize. He is also, much to my chagrin and disappointment, he is also what appears to be a Trump supporter. Because I saw on Twitter the other day that he was talking how unconstitutional the ballots in Philadelphia were, and Trump needs to put a stop to it, and at-home voting during this time is unconstitutional, blah, 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 blah. Now, at first when Robert Oberst came out, and this was about the time when the protests were starting in Michigan, he was attending protests, I believe, in Iowa. He was proud of Texas for standing up to the, for the Constitution. Same as Elon Musk, but I'll get to that fuck nut in a minute. At first, I didn't say anything about Robert's opinions because, in a way, I kind of agreed with him. A lot of these small businesses are suffering. It's unfair to them. And we just want things to progress. Okay? I agree with him. He wants people to make a living. I totally get that. I want people to make a living too. But I'm here to also tell you, speaking as someone who has been out there every day since the beginning of this, I may not be a front line worker, but I have seen firsthand what happens if precautions are not met. I don't think Robert has. I think he's going off of... You have to understand, he's known as the American Monster. He's an uber patriot. He loves his guns. I don't knock him for that. He loves his country. I will not knock him for that. because I love my country too, for all its flaws, and there are many. But he's a patriot. He's an American that loves being an American, and he's known as the American Monster. And you can buy his products, but understand, the American Monster shirts are made in China. How's that for patriotism? Anyway, going back hopefully on the path I was going on, he basically went to the protests in Iowa, was supporting the protests in Texas, and then he started posting things about how, as far as he's concerned, the quarantine is over. It's un-American. It's freedom suppressing to tell people to stay at home. And I unfollowed him on Instagram. I'm not even gonna lie, I unfollowed his YouTube channel because even though he's a funny guy, down to earth, I didn't want to hate him. I did not want to hate him. I unfortunately forgot Twitter. And it was there that I saw him talking about how California and other states are in order to enforce in order to push further the safety, they're introducing prima noctra. Now, if you don't know what that is when the feudal lords of colonies decide they're going to fuck your people, literally and figuratively. All in the name of a good time, I guess. And then another one where, as I mentioned earlier, he talked about the voter suppressions and unfair and unconstitutional voting that has happened in Philadelphia. Now, I don't know if he's fucking around or if he's joking, but to me, that screams a down-to-earth man who's ignorant as fuck. Okay? I encourage Robert to look up Beau of the Fifth Column, because that man has a firmer grasp on American history and patriotism than Robert Oberst will ever considerably have. Ever. He even goes in, Beau of the Fifth Column goes into his little history where he goes about how the Founding Fathers, how would they have handled COVID, something like COVID-19. Or, pardon me, the pandemic, I never said COVID, no. Take that back. To quote Blasphemous HD, I'm going to edit that out. I'm not. But how would the Founding Fathers have handled the pandemic? And he gave a history lesson that there was a case, ironically, in Philadelphia, where the Founding Fathers and the president at the time, George Washington, it doesn't get more, American history than that, they had to do a shutdown of Philadelphia. Does Robert know this? Would Robert have protested the acts of this back in the day with his musket? I doubt it. I really doubt it. So, I voiced my displeasure with him. Because I honestly hate being that person that goes on social media. I really do. I hate being that fucking person that goes on social media and tries to, shout back at someone for their views. Because it is ultimately his views. His opinions, and we're all entitled to them. The thing is, his views are dangerous. Because he's listening, it seems, to a guy who really could care less about the country. He could care less about the world. He only cares about himself. And of course I'm referring to the Cheeto in the White House. And it's at the expense of people's lives here. I am neither Democrat or Republican. I am neither conservative nor liberal. Although some people would say I have more liberal views, some people would say I have more conservative views. I humbly and happily refer to myself as a conservative. That being said, I firmly believe this country needs to do what is smart. And what we have currently at the helm of the bobsled here, i.e. Donnie, that there's not going to be a smart act made at all, because he's more concerned about getting reelected. And I'm sorry to all my religious friends out there, churches are not an essential service. You can pray from home. You can indulge yourself spiritually anywhere. You don't need to go sit in a packed church and fucking pray there. If it's what gets you closer to whatever deity you prescribe to, fine. But wait, you can get more spiritual in the privacy of your own home. Sitting by yourself in a park, socially away from people, but you know what I mean. I mean, I'm not atheist, I'm more agnostic, but I feel more spiritual when I'm outside. I'm more in touch with things spiritually when I'm taking a walk through the trees. You're telling me you can't get that unless you go inside a stuffy church, sit on a hard pew, kneel and listen to someone go, and then everyone around you going, Amen. I'm sorry, that's more of an insomnia cure than anything. So, you want to put faith into a man who doesn't care. A man who said from the beginning this was a hoax perpetuated by the Democrats in order to make him look bad. It's a hoax, everything's a hoax, it's fake news. Donnie needs to flip the record over, Jesus Christ. So now, on top of that, now he's like, well, we're providing a lot of testing. We're providing a lot of masks. I know a lot of nurses and doctors that would have begged to, and housekeeping staff that would have begged to differ on that one. Hell, I have to tread a very careful line here, but I didn't get safety equipment until, I want to say, at least 3 weeks in to the pandemic. Why? Because we didn't have any. There was none to be had. Okay? But yet, according to that dipshit, there was plenty. They're getting it to everyone that needs it. Really? And yet, here we are. This, I want to say, started for us back in March. So we're going on almost 3 months now. The stay-at-home order was supposed to go down, I think, it was extended until, I think, May 28th, which is not long from now. It's 3 days from now. And she could extend, the governor of Michigan could extend it again. But you know what? As much as it confuses me how we can have a fireworks store open but I can't get a haircut, I can go to the liquor store, but, some other businesses can't be open. It's mind-boggling. But at the same token, I am all for doing this smart. If it's to save lives. Now, mind you, we have passed, I believe, 100,000 deaths in the United States. And the new epicenter for this is now in South America, in case you haven't been, keeping tabs. But I am not about to gamble. Do you see why I played this game? I am not about to gamble my life, my fiance's life, my friend's life, because people like Robert Oberst, in the name of freedom, in the name of our American duty, want to rush things to open? Okay, I'm not blind. This shit will probably hit us again. It's no different than any other virus out there, like the flu that happens every year. Or the cold. Or anything else. Dog, I swear to God, if you bark because she's putting on her shoes, I will freaking just zip your lip. Sorry about that. Anyway, I want to do things smart. I'm not blind that this could happen again. But if it means wearing a mask, great. If it means washing my hands, which we should be doing anyway, but call me crazy. There's a lot of people who will go to the bathroom, shake the dew off the lily, and walk out without so much as looking at the soap dispenser. I'm all for that. Sanitizing, I'm down for that. 6 feet away from somebody, I'm down for that. I hate people anyway, for the most part. I make very rare exceptions, but for the most part people annoy me because, sorry Robert, you say it's unconstitutional for them to impose these actions that they have done in the name of safety, that we're trading safety to alleviate our fears. Okay, first of all, there are morons out there who couldn't be bothered to stay indoors. Because, well, how am I going to get my freak on? The minute she announced the goddamn stay-at-home order, there was a party in a major park here in Michigan that the police had to break up because these people were either too stupid or couldn't be bothered to think of what they were doing. The ramifications of possibly spreading. And guess what? In Detroit, it spiked dramatically. I'm not saying all those people were at the party, but it's actions like that that cause shit to spike. But oh no, Robert, let's open everything up. Let's open up the gyms that are walking petri dishes because people don't even know how to wipe down the equipment after they're done with it anyway. Let's open up the bars so people can gather together in close proximity and inhale each other's smoke and breathe on each other, all in the name of constitutional freedoms. I'm saying do it smart. But the way you, Robert, want it, it seems like you wanted to do it. Originally, I would have agreed with slow, steady, gradual. But no, you had to go and say, even in jest, that these governors who are doing it the smart way, who are trying to save lives, much like George Washington did back when Philadelphia had that case of yellow fever. Because they're trying to do it the smart way, you're saying they're invoking prima noctra. Robert, I want to send back every Chinese-made t-shirt I ever bought to support you. Because that is the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen you say. And that's saying a lot because I really think you're a down-to-earth and humble guy. But you are very, very misled. I don't think you've been out there. I don't think you've been dealing with this. And quite frankly, unless you've actually dealt with it firsthand, I think you don't have a leg to stand on. And I'm going to tell you a story. And this is directed only at you, Robert. You'll probably never hear this, much like Eddie and Thor probably never heard my rant telling them, you know, Thor, and believe me, I'm going to get to Thor in a second also. But, oh, let's lump Elon Musk in all this too, because that asshole. Everyone else gets to open, but my Tesla place doesn't get to open. California hates me. I'm going to take my company and move out of the state to the state that'll actually let me be me and make my cars. Fuck you. You couldn't even be bothered to put an oh shit bar in any of your vehicles. I get it. You're Singapore, which is in the hotbed of the pandemic central, at least at the beginning, implemented things and went, you know, but the simple fact that you even had to go Matrix and say people need to take the red pill. And by the way, kudos to the author for telling you to go fuck yourself. You and Ivanka. The simple fact that you're supposed to be a smart man, an intelligent man, and yet you think Trump's doing a good job. You're an idiot. I'll take the blue pill, thank you. Because I sure as fucking drinking the red Kool-Aid. Much like you have. Now back to Robert. You seem like a smart man. Or at least a humble man and a good man. But you're an easily misled man. And I'm going to tell you a story. I was talking to my neighbor yesterday. And this is the first time I've seen him outside in close to 3 months. Because all this started. And he was telling me that this has weighed a lot on his family. His girlfriend suffers from anxiety because of it, and truth has nothing to do with what she sees on the news. It's because she's trying to keep her and her family safe, but she sees people out there, much like you, Robert, who are kind of treating this as a joke. Not wearing their masks, not sanitizing themselves after touching something. Basically, no regard for themselves or anyone else. And it made her anxious. He was also telling me how it drives him crazy. He opens the door, he's got his mask on because he knows that this is an airborne disease. Now granted, you really have to, like, the whole 6 feet rule. I know there's a guy out there who says the whole 6 feet rule was born from the people in the government because, you know, they can track you better if you're 6 feet apart on your cell phones. Where's your tinfoil hat? Anywho, he goes outside and he sees people just walking around, talking to other neighbors. They got their masks on, but yet he'll look down and he'll see another person, like, literally not wearing their mask, in close proximity to other people. And he didn't want to leave his house, because the world has stupid people out there. Then we mentioned the fact that my other neighbor on my other side, I haven't seen him since the beginning. And that's when it was revealed to me by my neighbor that he, right before the shit hit the fan, he had flown to Argentina. And then the shit hit the fan and now he can't come back. Guess where Argentina is, Robert? South America. Where's the new epicenter for all this? South America. So my neighbor is now in danger. Now, I know you're going to spin it around and say, oh, well, that's because of the government making the travel bans. Who did that, Robert? I think he puts on a spray tan every morning, does a massive comb over, and he says things like Gina, Kofefe. I'm sorry, Robert. I like you, but I have lost a lot of respect for you. And while I want to send my American Monster shirts back to you, I decided, you know what? No. Because you're not the American Monster. You're the American roll over and listen to whatever Donnie tells me. Your patriotism is askew. I'm the American Monster. I listen to things like Teddy Roosevelt, who says it's more patriotic to criticize your president than to roll over and listen to everything he says. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist. So I will keep my shirts. It may have put money in your misguided pocket, but guess what? I'm the American Monster. I'm the one people like you are tired of hearing from. In other words, the ones who really love their country and are tired of seeing people like Donnie split it apart because he doesn't have a clue about what leadership really is. Maybe one day I'll come back and I'll see what you're up to. Hopefully you're doing well. But if you're still going to hold on to the belief that this country is being suppressed by governors trying to do the right thing, yeah. I'm gonna pretend that these shirts were born from the necessity that, yeah, the real American Monster had to be born from your blind allegiance to Donnie instead of facts. Now, to round things up, going to Thor and Eddie, because the last time I talked, I said Thor should postpone the deadlift. Turns out he didn't, of course. Of course not. And he did do the 501k deadlift. Kudos to him. And then he called out Eddie for the fight, which now this looks like it's a big work to push their fight because they've been talking about this for a while. There's even a video on Thor's page. Hey, let's do it for charity. We'll get it together. I doubt it's for charity anymore because they're both getting like 7 figures out of the deal. But as much as I was disappointed with Eddie's response, I'm now finding myself more on Eddie Hall's side. Because there was a video that came out not too long ago. Granted, the beginning where it looked like Thor didn't shake his hand was doctored for dramatic effect. Thor did shake Eddie Hall's hand at the 2017 World's Strongest Man. But everything else after that was not doctored. You saw Thor act like a grade A, world-class baby. And, in my humble opinion, that made me lose all respect for that guy. Still think he's a phenomenal athlete, albeit probably juiced to the core, but he's still a phenomenal athlete. But back in 2017, he was the biggest crybaby on the planet. But what made me really lose the respect for him is his response to that video. Even though I will be the first to admit that, that handshake thing was doctored for dramatic effect, the things that he said and did thereafter were not. And the fact that it is now 2020, and a video that wasn't made by anyone at World's Strongest Man, it was made by a former producer. He even says it at the beginning of the video. Um, he got butthurt. He still blames Colin Bryce for helping Eddie Hall win, when if Thor had any self-integrity, he could have won the airplane pole, he could have won any other event because he had excelled. I watched the recently rather, I watched a old World's Strongest Man from 2012. And that man has come a long way from finishing 5th, 7th, to becoming the World's Strongest Man in 2018. So to have him still be butthurt over losing by 1 point, when that he should be angry at himself. Not at Colin Bryce, not at Eddie Hall, not at the World's Strongest Man, himself. And then to have his reaction video where he basically said he will never, ever, ever compete in a Giants Live competition ever again. So he is basically retired. However, I believe he is still going to compete for the World's Ultimate Strongman, which I think is the most unfortunate acronym, you know, WUS. Which he's acting like right now. Like a complete fucking wuss. I will never compete for Giants Live ever, 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 ever again. Because they hurt my feelings. No, they basically pointed out that you were a poor loser. A poor sportsman. The character of the Mountain, I don't know why, is one of my favorite characters. The Hound is actually my favorite, but the Mountain was my second favorite. But as far as Half-Thor goes, you would think he'd matured. He looked like he matured, but he's still surrounded by people who will basically tell him anything he wants to hear. And he hasn't matured enough to take a step back and go, you know, this is on me. I could have won these events. If I would have pushed that much harder, I could have won. But I didn't. It wasn't my year. Instead, he still blames Colin Bryce. He still blames Eddie. Now, whether he's doing this to build up hype for a fight that won't take place for another year, a little over a year, kudos. You're pulling the wool all over a lot of people's eyes. But it's really painting you in a bad light, man. And you're acting more immature than the baby you're currently expecting with your wife. And that is disappointing. It's like, fucking grow up, Thor. Just fucking grow up. Now, personally, I'm hoping things will get back to normal, but they never will. Things as we know it before March, it's been altered. It got altered long before there was a pandemic, to be honest. Because the way people act now, it's sad. And I'm not saying this falls on Thor's shoulders, this falls on Eddie's shoulders, this falls on Robert's shoulders, or even Elon Musk. It falls on all of us. Do you remember a time when we used to vote and not tell people who we voted for? Do you remember when religion was another thing you didn't talk about? I do, and I miss those days. 'Cause now I get to look at relatives of mine who I thought at one point we were all on the same page, and they support things that go against everything you believe in, but they still say they love you, which I'm pretty sure they think the same thing of me. I almost wish we could go back and be under the veil of ignorance, where we didn't know that much about our family, We didn't know that much about our friends and their point of views other than what you saw on the surface. 'Cause truth be told, it kind of scares and saddens me to know that I have friends and family out there that think this is the way we should be. This is the way we should act. And sometimes I honestly hate myself for some of the views I have. Because I know there's certain family members I can't look at without thinking, you're a dick. You're a cunt. You're an asshole. Just as much as I know they probably think the same for me. Because I have views that they don't agree with. And to end this video, I'm going to end it in just one way. And yes, I'm going to sound incredibly old doing so. I would love to be a 10-year-old again, where the news was just something they had on, on the television. I didn't really pay too much attention to it because, quite frankly, it bored me. I would love to be able to just go outside and say hi to people without thinking behind their eyes they were thinking that they wish I would die or go to hell or be suppressed or have my people like me be treated like second-class citizens. And this brings me to the thing I stated earlier about certain cities restricting who they sell to because, they want to protect their citizens. The irony of the fact that the government allowed under Rick Snyder's rule, if you will, that businesses could discriminate if they wanted to serve homosexual people or perform their weddings, issue them licenses or whatever. It's not escaped me. It hasn't escaped me at all. But the 10-year-old me wishes, just for a moment, that we could go back to when I was 10 years old. And I didn't know any of this shit because I was so much happier. And you're talking to somebody who got bullied for being fat. So that's all I'm going to say. For now, anyway. If you really want to listen to a story that mirrors, in some ways, a lot what's going on today, I suggest going on Audible, getting their free trial, and looking up an audiobook about life during World War II. It's narrated by Martin Sheen. I can't remember the exact name of it right now. But it really is something that I think people should listen to because a lot of the fears, a lot of the things that are going on, all the divisions, it's no different than it was back in the 1930s, 1940s. I've said it before on our podcast before. And it just proves that if you don't pay attention to history, you're going to be doomed to repeat it. Only this time we're not fighting Nazis. We're not fighting the Japanese. We're not fighting the Italians. We're fighting a pandemic. But worse, we're fighting ourselves. So get it together. And I'm talking to you, United States. I'm talking to you, Robert Oberst. I'm talking to the world. Get it together. Because we will certainly fizzle out as a species. And hindsight being 20/20, that might not be a bad idea. He agrees. So, on that note, I'm going to end that here. You hopefully will be able to get to hear us again eventually on Cave Radio. If not, I know we're going to try to set up the Zoom again as soon as I get that confirmation. When and if and ever. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Until then, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and please be smart. Because the life, honestly, you save could be your own. Until then, keep your rants in your pants.